everyone, this is Tamara, your courtroom companion. In this video, I'm going to share with you 4 strategies that I used in my own case to help me with gathering my documentation and my evidence and keeping it all organized. I'm also going to share with you a notebook of my own that I organized for one of the issues in my case, and I'm going to show you, how I organized that notebook, and so you'll want to stay tuned for that as well. And I'm going to show you some text messages, and I'm also going to share with you one tip, a really important tip to make sure that you are ready to go to court. So do hit that subscribe button and that bell notification below so you'll be notified when I upload my content. Strategy 1 is that you can't wait until the last minute to gather your evidence. You have to be collecting evidence along the way. Inevitably, that last week before going to court, my attorney, when I had attorneys, sometimes I didn't have one, I represented myself, but when I had an attorney, inevitably that last week before court, they're gearing up, right? Your attorney's going to be gearing up, and I used to get last minute homework assignments. I need these texts or I need these emails, and sometimes your kids get sick or you get sick, and so you cannot wait until the last minute to start collecting that evidence. So my first strategy is collect the evidence along the way. Strategy 2 is that you need to print off text messages so they're really, really large. And I'm going to show you an example of what I mean in that notebook that I mentioned earlier. What I learned in my own case is that when text messages are submitted to the judge, as part of the evidence, if they are entered into evidence, which there's a formal process for entering text messages into as evidence in your court hearing. I can't tell you how many times the judge, and we had several judges along the way, I can't tell you how many times the judge remarked about how much they appreciate the larger text messages because they can read them. And the other benefit to printing them really large is that you can be almost guaranteed that they're not going to miss anything in those text messages. When you're fighting a narcissist in court, the details are really, really important. The words that they use are really, really important. So you don't want the judge to miss any of those words. And so printing the text messages off larger is a really good idea. So how I printed off those text messages to make them larger, I don't know. What I would do is I would screenshot on my iPhone, and then I would upload it to my computer. And when I went to print, or when I sent it to myself and printed it, I chose actual size. There are other options, so it's the actual size of the text message. That's the choice I chose. So I'm not sure what kind of phone you have or what kind of picture program you have, but that's how I did it. I would screenshot on my iPhone, upload it to myself, and choose actual size. So if you're tech savvy, you probably already know that, but I just wanted to share with you that's how I did those text messages. Strategy number 3 is to print off your emails from something like Microsoft Outlook rather than, say, Yahoo or Gmail. What I learned in my case is some of those web-based email services, they tend to jumble up the emails. It's almost like they're not in order, and I'm not a tech person. I just know that I used to have to say, this communication happened first, and I would put a 1, and then this happened, and number 2. I'm probably doing something wrong, but what I found is that printing my emails from Microsoft Outlook, it's like reading a Word document, like Microsoft Word, and I just found that it went smoother in court. I didn't want the judge to get things out of order. Again, because fighting a narcissist in court, you have to have everything kind of laid out very easily so that they can pick up on the issues really quick. If they have to fumble around trying to figure out the order of a communication, it's lost. It just takes too much time and too much effort on the judge. And so I would recommend using Microsoft Outlook. That's what I used, and it made it much smoother when I figured this out. I didn't do it initially. Again, I had to learn this stuff along the way, but the Microsoft Outlook just made things run much more smoothly in court. And for some of you who are really tech savvy, maybe you can kind of drop in the comments. I'd love to hear what it is about those web-based services that make, keeping the order in order. And so, yeah, please let me know because I'd love to understand what that's about. So strategy number 4 is to collect all of the information about one issue in a notebook. If the issue is not really large and there's not a lot of documentation, maybe you can put several issues in one notebook. But in a minute, I'm going to show you my own notebook for an issue, and I'll show you how I organized it, but there's several ways you can do this, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And the reason that this is important is because when you go to court, things move really fast. That's why everything has to be, in large print, and the emails have to be really clear. And so things move really, really fast, and you don't want to be in court and not be organized. Now, if you're represented by an attorney, he's going or she's going to organize their own files. But even when you have an attorney, you yourself have to have almost the same amount of documentation, because let's say your attorney is fumbling around because maybe they didn't organize well. If you're organized, you can pull out whatever you need from that same note, from your notebook. And that's happened many times for me. I was so glad I had my own documentation. Now, those are the 4 strategies that I mentioned that I would share with you. Now, I also said I would share with you a tip. And the tip is that just as you're getting your documentation and your evidence game really strong and airtight by keeping those 4 strategies in mind, you don't want to give your ex or your narcissist, whoever you're fighting in court, you don't want to give that person any documentation that they don't need, right? So you'll want to make sure that nothing that you say in writing is going to be in his evidence notebook or her evidence notebook, right? So you'll want to make sure that your communication game is also very strong. And I did a video a while back on the 3-step communication. I developed this 3-step communication process for dealing with narcissists. And I go really in depth on how to get your communication game strong. And I'll link that one above and below as well, because that's the thing that you need to keep in mind, is that you don't want them to have a notebook full of evidence against you. And so the least you say, the better. So if you're struggling, keeping your cool, keeping your anger out of writing, you'll definitely want to check out that video. That will save you. I developed this process, and not that I didn't have any anger issues. I didn't have any issues, but what I struggled with was not anger or keeping my cool or anything like that. What I struggled with was I would put in writing, I would defend myself in writing. Like, my ex would accuse me of all these things, and I would defend myself in writing. Well, then he has my side of the story before even going to court. And so that's what I had to work on, is like not putting my story in writing. And so whatever the reason is that you're struggling with in terms of communication, you'll want to check out that video. It will save you. I promise you it will save you if you implement that 3-step process. I use that 3-step process every single day. Anytime I interact with my ex, I use that process. And it has not only saved me from putting stuff in writing, but it's also brought me a lot of peace. I don't have to argue with him. I don't have to defend myself. His opinion of me doesn't matter to me. It's not my business. And so I do hope you'll check out that video. So again, in summary, the 4 strategies are: strategy number 1 is collect your evidence along the way. Strategy number 2 is to make sure you print off your text really large. Strategy number 3 is to make sure you use a Microsoft Outlook product like Microsoft Outlook for your emails. And strategy number 4 is to make sure you organize all of your evidence and documentation in a notebook. And the tip is to make sure that you're not giving anything in writing that the other side does not need. So just keep your evidence close to your vest. And now I'm going to show you my notebook and how I organized things. Now, the notebook I'm going to show you, I have a title called Emotional Abuse on the notebook, but that's not actually what's in the notebook. I just use that as a general term. Like, if you have emotional abuse as part of your story, you can organize it this way. And so I'm going to turn the camera now and show you that documentation. And so here's the title of the book. So I put that on the outside. So I just called it Emotional Abuse, but that's, again, not what's actually in here, right? And so if you have multiple issues, you can put like emotional abuse, physical abuse, I don't know, protective order, whatever you want to do. If you can organize them more than one issue in a notebook, you can put what each of the titles are. So you know that this notebook is for those 3 or 4 issues. But again, this is just for one issue. Okay, and so when you open it up, I have a summary sheet here, and behind here, and I won't show you my actual story here because this is private information, but I have a summary page here, and behind it I have like a bulleted list of the issue here, right? And then behind this first tab, I have some reports that belong with my issue, and so you'll see I have the reports behind this tab, and then behind the next tab is then I have emails, and then behind this one I have text messages, and then I have additional information. Now let me show you text messages. See how large those text messages are? I don't know. This is how large the text messages are. So again, here is the notebook, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. The title goes there, and then you organize behind each tab. Now, if let's say you have 4 issues in your notebook, behind each tab can be a separate issue, right? So however you want to organize your notebook, this will keep you going to court very organized, and you can help your attorney, support your attorney when he or she is representing you. If you'd like to work one-on-one with me, I'll leave a link below so you can check that out with a free discovery call. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and please do leave a comment below if you have other strategies that helped you get prepared for court in terms of your evidence and documentation. As always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.